Howdy, this is the Views from the Shop podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, Tim Miller, and today it is Thursday, December 5th, 2024, and I wish you a very, very, very happy bathtub party day. Today's show is, as always, exclusively presented by College Basketball Analytics. You can go to cbbanalytics.com right now, sign up for a free account, or you can sign up for a paid account, get access to all the stats that several Division I men's and women's college basketball programs have access to. Use the code SHOTT, SCHOTT, and you can get your entire first month free. I have the duty, the honor, and the very, very difficult job of bringing some semblance, some shred of calm to a very, very emotional Ohio State basketball and Ohio State in general fan base on today's show. The football team loses the game for the fourth straight year over the weekend. National Signing Day doesn't really go that great for Ohio State on the football side. And to cap it all off, Ohio State, on my birthday, decides to get absolutely walloped by Maryland. Twitter, now known as X, is just up in flames. The message boards as well are melting down. And here we are on the Views from the Shop podcast, trying to make sense of what we have seen take place last night, where Ohio State gets destroyed by Maryland. And the score at the end, it didn't look as bad as what it was really over one half. Or did Ohio State just play better in the second half, and maybe it was just a real 24-point loss? Who's to say? Who's really to say? Today, we're going to not really talk a lot about stats or anything like that. I've got a couple of takeaways from the game, and then there's some narratives that I need to, in some ways, destroy and incinerate and bury them, not even 6 feet under. I mean, maybe like going to the core of the earth and sending them away into the great unknown. And then we've got to talk about, can this team even beat Rutgers or anyone in the Big Ten? We'll talk about that. So if you are new here, this is the only Ohio State basketball exclusive podcast publishing content year round. Due to the holidays, didn't have a recap on Pitt, but we cover every single game, basically no matter what. And we're here on a weekly basis, even in the offseason as well, talking Ohio State hoops. So please do subscribe. It helps the show. And you know what? It's just there for you. You don't have to listen every time you see a new episode, but it's there for you. I'm here for you. I think that's kind of the major takeaway from today's show. So subscribe if you haven't. Give a 5-star review. Shoot me a DM. Shoot me a screenshot saying that you have, and I'll give you a big thank you, maybe even a shout out. Who knows? And of course, make sure you're following on all the social medias, on X, on Instagram, on YouTube, and even on Facebook as well. So the really annoying part about social media, it's not the doom scrolling, it's not the addiction, it's not the dopamine suppression. It's just the fact that everyone can say whatever they want and have zero consequences. Me on this show, we don't delete tweets, okay? We don't delete episodes or anything like that. I have to sit here. I have this platform, the ability to talk to you, the Ohio State basketball fans, and whatever I say, if I end up being wrong, you'll remember it. I had someone, an Illinois fan, remember something that I said and call me something very mean. Most people maybe would pack it up at that point. Some rudeness, just words that you shouldn't say to another human being. I will never forget that. And for that reason, I have to bump Illinois up a spot or two every time I talk about them, because I don't want to be attacked again. That's me. That's me being vulnerable to you. But the good thing about the spot that you may be in is that you can have an Ohio State Twitter account, X account, that talks about Twitter. It can be, you can have your own personal account, you can have a burner. It doesn't matter. you can delete tweets because no one really knows. Now, they may take a screenshot at some point and you're on the hook for that. But outside of that, you can say pretty much what you want. And the issue and how it relates to today's show is we can say whatever we want at the click of a button. Just a couple of thumb strokes, a thumb stroke or two, and you can say literally whatever you want. You can publish it into the wild, wild west of the internet. And you know what? If it's a highly emotional take, and there's a lot of other people that are highly emotional too, they are going to take it and run with it. And that's some things that we saw. So here's the deal about this podcast. We've got a lot of people here who have been listening for years to this show. Maybe if you're new, this is just a refresher, okay? The Views from the Shop podcast is not fanatical. It's not nearsighted. It's not emotional. My goal with this podcast when I started it was be measured, be analytical, and be slow to react, whether it be good or whether it be bad. When Ohio State beat Texas, I didn't come out banging the drum saying, hey, Ohio State's going to go to the Final Four. I said, yeah, that was a good game. That was encouraging for us to see. When Ohio State lost to Texas A&M, I didn't say it's over. Burn the ships and let's all drown together. And now that Ohio State has been crushed by Maryland, you're still not going to hear me say those things. Look, the game wasn't good. Ohio State trailed by 33 points at halftime. It was the largest deficit since the 1997-98 season in a Big Ten game. Largest deficit at halftime in a Big Ten game in, 27 years. Not good. We don't prefer that. But the season is not over, and this team can still make the tournament. We have some crazy narratives, including that Ohio State's game on December 7th is a must-win against Rutgers. We will get into that. I feel passionately one way about that. We'll talk about it. But first, I've got some takeaways for you. So I needed to set the scene, first of all, that this show, I'm not going to burn my house down over Ohio State losing to Maryland. You may do that, and if you do that, that's fine. That's your choice. I'm not going to burn my house down over Ohio State losing to Maryland and losing by 24 to Maryland, okay? It's not going to happen. You're not going to get that from me. But we do have takeaways. My first takeaway in this game, where Ohio State lost by a lot of points. What happened with Evan Mahaffey? So, obviously, I wasn't at the game. I didn't get the chance to ask coaches. I didn't even text anyone last night after the game. I thought about it, and then on second thought, I was like, maybe we not tonight. Maybe we don't do that tonight. So I didn't text anyone. Why did Evan Mahaffey not play last night? He got 16 minutes in this game, and he scored 2 points. He didn't miss a shot from the field. He was an entire 1 of 1. I believe it was either a layup or a dunk. He was right at the rim when he made his shot, I believe. So he finishes with 2 points. On the flip side, we saw Austin Parks in this game play 18 minutes. Now, is this manufactured due to the fact that you don't have Aaron Bradshaw still, so you don't have a real center, so that means Austin Parks needs more minutes? Yeah, maybe. But Evan Mahaffey is too good to see the small amount of minutes that he saw in this game. Evan Mahaffey should be playing at least 20 minutes per game this season and over 20 minutes in every single game. And I have some stats to prove it as well. So Ohio State has a 30.1 net rating with Evan Mahaffey on the floor. That's 95th percentile in college basketball this season. They have a 16 rating with him off the floor, which is still good. That's great. Okay? But the differential that Evan Mahaffey sports is 75th percentile in college basketball. So when you look at the net rating, that's just your offensive rating plus minus your defensive rating. With Evan Mahaffey on the floor compared to off the floor, you have a 75th percentile number, essentially, with Evan Mahaffey on the floor compared to off the floor. Ohio State is really good when he's on the floor. The Ohio State is so good, they're just not as good when Mahaffey is off the floor. And it goes further. The Buckeyes have a 95th percentile offensive rating with him on the floor. I think that's thanks in large part to the fact that he can cut and he can flash to the rim, and he just knows where to be. He's a veteran player. He's just a solid player offensively when it comes to doing the right things. He's not going to hit threes for you, but he will do the right things. Buckeyes have a 95th percentile offensive rating when he's on the floor. They dropped to 84th percentile when he's off the floor. So it's still good. It's just not as good as when Mahaffey is on the floor, and it's elite when he's on the floor. And he's 92nd percentile in offensive rebounding rate differential. So you compare when he's on the floor to when he's off the floor. Ohio State is offensive rebounding way better when Evan Mahaffey is on the floor. So my question is, was he hurt? Was Evan Mahaffey dealing with something, and that's why his minutes were limited in this one? That's really the only real reason. I get he's 6'6". I get Austin Parks is a true center. I really don't care. Figure out a way to get Evan Mahaffey on the floor more. Had Evan Mahaffey been on the floor for 27 minutes in this one, would Ohio State had won? No, they wouldn't have. Still, it wouldn't have mattered. There were way too many things that went wrong in this one for Ohio State to win this game. But would it have been closer? Potentially. Let me see if I can either support my argument or completely ruin it. It's not really going to matter because the plus minus, number one, we don't really care about that stat. And number two, in a game like this, everyone is going to be negative. But let's see. Plus minus when Evan Mahaffey was on the floor was minus 10 compared to other numbers of minus 30 when Micah Parrish was on the floor, minus 20 for Bruce Thornton, minus 22 for Devin Royal, minus 17 for Meechie Johnson. It's not the worst number. Ohio State was plus 1 with Colby Ballman and Braylon Nash on the floor, so we'll take that. Maybe those guys should be the starters. I don't know. Overall, get the guy on the floor more. That was my number one takeaway. I kept looking, and I was like, why is he not playing? And I was looking at the stats and seeing the minutes numbers compared to him and Austin Parks. Austin Parks, look, he joined the show this offseason. I'm all in on Austin Parks being a good basketball player for Ohio State. He was not great against Maryland. He's not the reason Ohio State lost. It wasn't that bad, but he didn't look great against Maryland. He still got 18 minutes, so I didn't understand that. Another major takeaway in this one, what are we doing? There's a lot of people who are calling for Jake Diebler's head or just saying he was the wrong hire altogether from the start, which you weren't saying in July when Ohio State was landing Dorian Jones and Marcus Johnson and doing all the work they did in the transfer portal, but that's fine. I mean, again, it's social media. You can post whatever you want on X and it doesn't matter for you. There's no consequences, and that's the joy that you live in 2024. 2 minutes left in this game. 2 minutes. Ohio State trailing by probably 24 points. 2 minutes left in the game. It is completely out of reach. Aaron Bradshaw has apparently been, I don't know, swallowed into the ether. Like, he's gone. He's disappeared. Will he return for Ohio State ever? There's definitely a real chance that he doesn't ever play basketball for Ohio State again. Or maybe basketball anymore. We'll see. Colin White, he's out again. Quez Glover is out again. He's missed, 4 games in a row at this point? Sean Stewart already has a concussion this year. And Devin Royal has clearly been fighting a lower body injury since Pitt, and I think he was gimpy even before that game, but that could be me just misremembering things. With 2 minutes left in the game, you have John Mobley Jr., your best scorer off the bench, and I think on a points per game basis, your best scorer on the team this season. Let me see if that's still accurate. It was as of a couple games ago, after the Pitt game and after the Maryland game that may be different. Nope, Bruce Thornton is leading at 15.5 points per game. But don't worry, because Bruce Thornton was on the floor as well with John Mobley Jr. at this point, as was Meechie Johnson, as was Sean Stewart, another starter on the team, and as was Evan Mahaffey, who has been a starter last season and a very clear, he's not a role player, he's a clear contributor on this team off the bench. Those 5 players are on the floor when you're down by 9, 6, 7, 8 possessions. You're not going to get that back in 2 minutes. Get them off the freaking floor. I didn't understand that. I didn't get really angry about it. It was just past the point of confusion where you're like, am I dreaming right now? Why are these guys on the floor? After the under 4 minute timeout, start to get them out. Let's see your, Colin White and Quez Glover are out. Maybe just by virtue, you have to play those guys. Actually, Can I do this really quickly? So you could go with Braylon Nash, you could go with Colby Ballman, you could throw in a little Kalen Etzler action. Let's see. Who else could you have in there? You could have, I mean, I guess you could throw Austin Parks in there, and you could have Ivan Nigavan in there. I feel like I'm missing a guard potentially. I guess Kalen Etzler could play the 3. But at that point, you've got 5 players you don't really like. You don't need them on a game-to-game basis. Those 5 players that were in there with 2 minutes left, you need them. Like always do you need them. So why are they on the floor? If the answer from Jake Diebler is we wanted to feel good about what we saw, we wanted to get just a little more momentum, because that's what that second half was about. Ohio State was statistically eliminated from winning this game, I think with 17 minutes left to go in the second half. Okay, you're not going to win. Jake Diebler doesn't know that. He doesn't care. Just use the second half as a way to springboard you into Rutgers. And they kind of did that. I don't care. You did enough in the first 18 minutes of the second half to look okay for your game against Rutgers. You don't need that. You cannot afford another injury on this team. You cannot afford for Sean Stewart to go down again. You cannot afford to lose a Bruce Thornton. John Mobley Jr. limped off the floor. That's how he left the game. Not because Jake Diebler subbed him out, but because he limped off the floor. You can't afford it. That was careless. That was maybe somewhat selfish. I'm talking about a guy who's been on the show and will be on the show next offseason, even asked if he could come join the show during the season. Talking about Jake Diebler. I like the guy. That was extremely unwise, in my opinion, and he can support it all he wants. I didn't like that at all. You can't afford another injury. You just can't. Last takeaway from this one. So Ohio State actually won the second half. I don't know if anyone knows this, and I'm ducking because I'm afraid. I'm looking out my windows like someone's going to throw a machete at me just for simply saying that. Ohio State won the second half, and it was 42-33. It wasn't close. Ohio State outscored Maryland by 9 in the second half. And you can come at me and say, yeah, well, the game was already in hand. Maryland didn't really care. They weren't playing hard. I don't know. Derek Queen freaking brought the house down with 5 minutes left in the second half. It seemed like he was playing pretty hard. You don't, I mean, you have 14, 15 guys who are dressing for you. You can't just rest your starting lineup for an entire second half. It's hard to play 20 minutes in a row if you're coming off the bench or anywhere. It's hard to do that in college basketball. So look, Ohio State won the second half. They won 42-33. They actually looked good in some stretches. They won a 7-0 run. They continue to score. Michi Johnson showed a little bit defensively. Micah Parrish showed a little bit defensively. Bruce Thornton showed a little bit defensively. So Ohio State didn't look awful in the second half. And it's like, again, if these halves are reversed, and I've said this about a couple games this year, if these halves are reversed and the first half is 42-33, what is the narrative now? It's not that the season is over. It's not that the game against Rutgers is a must win. It's that, well, this might as well be a Chris Holtmann coach team. They blew another second half lead and then they got demolished in the second half. Big deal. And that's not how it went. So maybe that's unfair for me to argue that. But again, you win 42-33 in a second half. I know no one really cares, but you could have lost 42-33. Like, it could have been a full beatdown for 40 minutes. It was a complete beatdown for 20 minutes, and then you won the second half. Just saying. All right, we got some narratives to get in here. Thank you for listening or watching. If you are, please make sure you are subscribed right now. Please do that. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like the video. I would appreciate that a bunch. Today's show exclusively sponsored and presented by College Basketball Analytics, cbbanalytics.com. Sign up for a free account. Just do it if you haven't already. It's free. Goodness. All right. We've got some narratives and just some thoughts and what people are thinking about. And it's my job. Again, it's my job just to be measured. And at this, I am taking the throne and I am sitting down and saying, look, I'm going to be the king of Ohio State basketball for right now. The fan base, you answer to me, and you need some truth spoken into you. This is an intervention. It's time for everyone to sit down, stop sucking on your thumb, stop chewing on your t-shirt, get out of the dumpster. You can't dive in there anymore. It's time to get out, all right? Brush yourself off, take a shower, and come sit with me, okay? We need to have a talk. It's stop melting down. It's too much. The biggest complaint I have about what everyone was saying last night is saying that Ohio State's game against Rutgers on December 7th is a must-win game. So first of all, we need to define what is a must-win game. So this, to me, I think of it in terms of like the NFL, where it's, what are we, week 13 of the season coming up this upcoming weekend? And like, if the Bengals are a perfect example. I know a thing or two about the Cincinnati Bengals. I would assume that if the Bengals lose this game, they're technically eliminated from playoff contention. And last week, they lost to the Steelers in a game in which, if you lose that game, even if you win out, number one, you don't control your own destiny. And number two, you could win out. It's highly unlikely. But if you do, you at least have a sliver of hope for making the playoffs. The Bengals won't do that now because they lost to the Steelers. They're not mathematically eliminated, but they might as well be. A must win is, if you don't win that game, that's the spot you're going to be put in, which is, you may not be officially eliminated. You can't be eliminated from NCAA tournament contention, technically, because it's all opinion based. You're selected by humans. It's not like you have to cross a certain, relax. You have to cross a certain threshold in order to make the NCAA tournament. It's not like you have to be the top X in your conference. You have to win Y amount of games. That's not how it works. So there's not really a real elimination game unless you're in a conference tournament game like Ohio State was in last year, where they needed to win at least against Iowa, at least against Illinois, and at least the next game to have a shot. Those games were must wins. To close the year, when Ohio State had to go to Rutgers and win, and they had to beat Michigan at home and a couple other games earlier in that run from Jake Diebler, those were must wins, because if you lost, it was over. You had no shot based on other resumes, based on the quad 1, quad 2 opportunities you had. You needed to win those games. We are defining a must win as, if you lose, you do not control your own destiny, or in this case, in college basketball, you have a 0% chance of making the NCAA tournament. Newsflash: if Ohio State wins out, it won't happen. But if it did, if Ohio State were to win out, they would be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So that means that this game against Rutgers, by definition, cannot be a must win, because you could beat Rutgers and that's cool. You're still in it. But more importantly, you could lose to Rutgers and you could fall to 5-4, and then you could win the rest of your games and make the NCAA tournament. You could win half of the rest of your games and still have a really, really real shot of making the NCAA tournament. 50%, not 100%, 50%. Cut it in half. This is not a must-win game, is Rutgers. Now, we had some people come back and they wanted to give me their opinions, and that's fine. And there's some, like my friend Campbell, who has listened, I believe at least, he's interacted with the X account for years. I would like to think that he listens to the show and he contributes some questions to mailbags and things like that. He said, so I like him, and I'll go back and forth with a guy like that who, like, actually, I know that you have some kind of interaction with the show. I'm good with that, especially if you're respectful, even if you don't care about the show. He said, and I'm here for you, Campbell. I don't know if you're listening. Look, he said, I mean, it's not, sorry. Let me start over. He said, quote, I mean, it's not a must win, but, end quote, done. Argument over. You can't say, I mean, it's not a must win, but, and then go talk about why it is a must win. It either is or it isn't. Okay? You're either those who are or those who ain't. One of the two. Which are you? It's hard to say. Campbell, What do you want to say? What do you want me to say? You can't say it's not a must win, but it either is or it isn't. So Campbell, thank you for helping my argument. Okay. Someone else said, what do you not understand about an insanely hard schedule? I understand everything about an insanely hard schedule. You have Auburn, you have Kentucky, and guess what? If you finish December at 7-6, and that would require you losing to Rutgers, Auburn, and Kentucky, you finish the month 7-6. You have 18 freaking games left. Okay? This is a long, long season. You have 18 games left. If you win 10 of those games, you finish 17-14, and you head into the Big Ten tournament firmly on the bubble because of how good the Big Ten is going to be this year, because of how big this conference is. You're on the bubble. Is it a great scenario? No. But you lose to Rutgers, and then you lose to Kentucky, and then you lose to Auburn, which very well could happen, and you could still finish 17-14 and be on the bubble. So how can that be a must-win against Rutgers, where if you lose, the season's over? No, that makes no sense. Another guy decides to come at me. He gives me a huge monologue. He closes it with, "Don't be dumb." And then, at the end, he tells me, after saying Rutgers is a must-win, he closes with, "It would, quote, really hurt," end quote, to lose to Rutgers. I don't know, but to me, if it's a must-win game and you lose, that should feel like your spine getting ripped apart from your hips and removed from your body. That's what that should feel like if you lose a must-win, because it means your season is over. Really hurts? Like, that's like a sprained ankle. I've been there. Those are bad. I had surgery for a sprained ankle, man. And I'm an adult with asthma. I did not hit the lottery when it comes to health, apparently. You can't tell me that this is a must-win and then at the end say that losing a game really hurts. You know what you're doing. You're trying to back up these arguments with emotion, but you only 80% believe that it's true. That's my real belief with anyone calling this game against Rutgers a must-win. You just kind of you pretty much believe it, but you know in your heart of hearts, you don't 100% believe it. Now, someone did argue, I don't remember who this was, but they argued that a loss to Rutgers could really affect morale for the rest of the season. Sure, I get that. But on the flip side, that's kind of like, it's like you're driving from Columbus to Indianapolis and you've gotten on 70 to head west and then you just pull over. Like, that's not how we get there, okay? We have to complete the entire action and not just make one turn. This feels like we made one turn and we're just like, yep, that's it. We're here. Argument made. Done. No, it's not, because you don't know the morale in that locker room. You know, I can pretty much guarantee Jake Diebler in this locker room is doing right now. They are locked in on and focused on Rutgers. And then after that, they're going to be locked in and focused on Auburn, and then Valpo, and then Kentucky, and then Indiana State, and then they'll start Big Ten play. That's my guess, okay? Not even a guess. I'm sure that's the case. No one inside that locker room has thought of must win unless they saw it on social media, okay? No one has that mindset right now. The morale in the locker room, I have to assume, is just fine, especially with a guy like Jake Diebler. Now, does it help that Aaron Bradshaw is gone? No. Is everyone probably mad at Aaron Bradshaw for being an alleged idiot? Probably. Does that help the team? No, it doesn't. But I'm not really concerned about morale in December. And again, it is a long season. NC State last year started 5-2. Ohio State started 5-3 this season. They were 16-10 at one point. They were 17-14 at one point before making the NCAA tournament and making a run to the Final Four. Okay? 5-2, 16-10, 17-14. If Ohio State wins 10 games after finishing December 7-6, they will be 17-14. Is Ohio State the exact same team as NC State last year? No. Do they have a coach from that team on this coaching staff now? Yes, that is true. But It's possible. It could be done. 2022, Duke lost 3 of its first 8 games, just like Ohio State has. One of those games was to Ohio State. EJ Liddell just went bonkers. And Duke made the Elite Eight. That's cool. That's good, right? We're good at that, right? Starting 5-3, making the Elite Eight. Syracuse in the same year did the exact same thing. 76% of this season has not been played by Ohio State. 76% of the season has not been played yet. It is in front of you. So if that's the case, if you're ready to burn it down, if you're ready to say this season is over, I can't wait for spring practice, then be my guest. This team is not done. You cannot have 3/4 of the season ahead of you and say that a game against Rutgers is a must win and that the season is over if they don't win. And I'm not here to give you false hope. That's not my job. Okay? I'm trying to be measured, slow to react, analytical. That's my goal. It is just a fact. It is an objective fact. It is too early to call it for this season for Ohio State. It's too early to say that this Rutgers game is a must win. I'm not here to pump the team up after getting crushed over last night's game. Not here to say the front court, which has been a major concern of mine since the preseason, is not going to be a problem moving forward, especially without Aaron Bradshaw. But what if this team, what if it saw Rutgers? What if it saw Auburn? What if it saw Kentucky as opportunities, not as must wins? As we're going to go out and we're going to make a name for ourselves. We're going to put a nice win on our resume. What if that is the truth? What if, even if you lose those games, you're still not eliminated from NCAA tournament contention because it's freaking December? Santa hasn't even come yet. All right? Let's wait until Valentine's Day before we give a kiss of death to a team like Ohio State did with Chris Holtmann last year. This season is not over if Ohio State loses to Rutgers. We need to all be aware of that. The objective, factual truth, removing your emotions from what you just saw last night, tells you that this season is not over and that Ohio State can still lose to Rutgers and make the NCAA tournament. These are the facts. Now, outside of that, there are questions. Number one, how is Ohio State going to match up in Big Ten play? If you're going to look forward to this season, you want them to make the NCAA tournament, this front court has got to figure it out. Because Aaron Bradshaw was an alleged idiot, and if you're going to go be an alleged idiot and you're going to be gone from the team for who knows how long, you don't have a real center on this team. You can't trust Austin Parks, okay? Talking with coaches, talking with people, I guess I should say, there was a very clear split between Aaron Bradshaw and Sean Stewart. Then you go down to Evan Mahaffey and Devin Royal. And then you go down further than that, and no one is getting talked about in that front court. So you're down to 3 of those guys. Those other 3 are not centers. Evan Mahaffey is 6'6". Devin Royal is 6'6". And Austin Parks is a real center. I didn't hear his name much, okay, during the preseason from people who know. So how are you going to match up with Xavier Booker at Michigan State, Stephen Krall at Wisconsin, Omar Ballo at Indiana, and the list goes on and on. This is Big Ten basketball. I get Jake Diebler. I understand the way that he wanted to play. I understand that he wants guys who can run and leap and jump and dunk and shoot threes. I get that. But if you can't control the tempo, you're going to get crushed in this Big Ten without an Aaron Bradshaw. And I don't even know if Aaron Bradshaw was going to be a good enough defender to take on a guy like Stephen Krall. I don't know. But this is a real concern for Ohio State. And if you're talking about making the NCAA tournament, this front court, and this is something that I mentioned before the Pitt game. I mentioned it, whatever game was before that, Campbell or whatever, Green Bay. I talked about this constantly. I don't know about this front court without Aaron Bradshaw. And now you see it against a team that has real centers, real postmen. Didn't go well for Ohio State. And by the way, Jake Diebler said all offseason he was going to push the pace. He said on this very podcast he's not interested in being guarded by a Michigan State in the half court. Well, then you better go freaking run. You're going to have to go run way more than you have to start this season. The pace has been too slow. At Stoffman also asked about just in general the landscape of Ohio State basketball. He said the Diebler hire signaled Ohio State doesn't care about men's basketball. So I get that. I hear you. I don't agree. I don't understand how it could be true, even. Again, I'm trying to be measured, trying to think about it. Men's basketball is the only program outside of football that makes positive revenue, that produces revenue for the Ohio State University of all other athletics programs. Okay? It's the only revenue producing sport. Therefore, Ross Bjork and Ohio State in general has a true vested interest in this basketball team being very, very good. Those of you who wanted Dusty May, look, I said the morning after Ohio State lost to Illinois, I said this game showed to me that Ohio State needs to go hire Dusty May and not Jake Diebler. And then Ohio State took Jake Diebler. And look, I didn't think it was a bad move. I thought you had two good options. And I prefer Dusty May. Dusty May's doing a great job up north right now. That's cool. It's still December. It's barely freaking December. It's December 5th. We have no conclusions at this point in the season. Okay? None. This time last year, we were crying for Ohio State to be ranked because they crushed Alabama and Santa Clara. And then they sucked. So be careful making your conclusions about the team. But I will say it's so early to put Jake Diebler in a casket and lower him. Okay? That was morbid. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Regardless, the jury is still out on Jake Diebler. The jury is still out on this freaking season. Diebler's going to get a couple years to see if he can figure this out with Ohio State. And losing to Maryland is not good, but it doesn't mean that the season is over and that Jake Diebler is a bad head coach and that Ohio State doesn't care about basketball and only cares about football. None of those things are true, okay? Last thing, at Derek_Jones44, just asking about how do you regroup for Rutgers. I don't know, but it's an easy segue. I'm not the coach at Ohio State. It's not my job to regroup the team. So I don't know. Maybe you pat him on the back. Maybe you say, we're going to practice today with imaginary basketballs instead of real basketballs. Maybe you say, we're not going to play basketball at all. We're going to go in a dark room and for 24 hours, we're not going to look or hear or do anything like Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe you just keep going on business as usual because you got a game to play. That could be it. But I will say this. I don't think Rutgers is the worst matchup for Ohio State. They're not a traditional Big Ten team. They don't have a true center. Sure, you've got Dylan Harper. Sure, you've got Ace Bailey there. Ace Bailey, obviously, 6'10", I believe. You've got some guys who can go out and run and leap and jump, but they're not that traditional type of team. Rutgers is a good team. Rutgers is a really, really good basketball team, but not a team that Ohio State can overcome. So we're going to talk about that. Ohio State will play Rutgers on Saturday. Tomorrow morning, you're going to get an episode. We'll preview that game. I will be at the Shot on Saturday, so come say hello, of course. And I don't think this game against Rutgers is a must-win. I also don't think it's impossible for Ohio State to win. I actually think they match up okay with the Scarlet Knights. So we'll be back tomorrow to preview that. I just need everyone to relax for a few minutes. Like, just sit down and let your blood pressure go back to normal before we make any more comments and thoughts about Ohio State basketball. It could be okay. The flip side, it could be bad. Ohio State could get crushed this year. That could be it. They might miss the NCAA tournament and the freaking NIT tournament too. And if that happens, my gosh, I'm going to be disappointed in this team. But it's not over yet. I'm not making any conclusions, and neither should you. Alrighty. That's it for today's show. Good timing, good pace, good content, good emotion. If you hate it, you can feel free to let me know. You can flood the DMs, and I may read them, I may not, but I will be there. And you can at least have your thoughts be known to me. Alrighty. Appreciate you listening and potentially watching to today's show. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Rutgers preview. Until then, until next time, I'm going to shut up before you shut me off. Go Buckeyes.